Good day, collectors and viewers. Social Distance Warrior is back, and today we're going to look at one of our original 96 figures here, the AT-ST Driver from Return of the Jedi. Now, the AT-ST Driver, of course, made his appearance back in that third and final Star Wars movie, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, when we see our fellow rebels traverse to the forest moon of Endor. They, of course, meet their allies, the Ewoks, there, and then find out at some point that they've been tricked, and this has been plotted all along by Emperor Palpatine, and they get trapped and captured on the forest moon of Endor. And, of course, we see a whole bunch of new Imperials. We see scout troopers, we see speeder bikes, and then we see these chicken walkers / AT-STs menacing the background, walking in the background, stepping all over our fellow Ewoks and rebels, and of course the people that are driving or piloting these vehicles are the AT-ST drivers, of course. So again, AT-ST Driver made his debut in Return of the Jedi. He would be one of the later figure releases in the Return of the Jedi line. He'd be part of the 77 back, released in 1984, and that is this figure over here. Now, a lot of the figures at the time, once they've gotten towards the end of the line, the sculpting, the realism was a lot better on the characters. Basic figure, obviously an Imperial troop. You can have him as an army builder, but of course the whole point of this guy is to have him pilot your AT-ST / chicken walker. So you can see he's wearing his Imperial jumpsuit or outfit there. You can see the detail that he's got on this character here. Remember, this is a 40-plus-year-old figure, almost, because he's 1984, but he'll be 40 soon. But he stands the test of time. He's got the nice gray helmet. You can see he's got black visors over his eyes there. Chin strap. You can look at that sculpt all the way around on the helmet. They've detailed it nicely. There is, of course, standard articulation on this guy. You can turn his head side to side. Working our way down over here, we notice he does have the Imperial insignia on both shoulders over there. Okay. No articulation, of course, here at the waist. That wasn't common on these figures, but there is, of course, articulation here at the arms. You can move them up and down. Okay, on both sides there. We work our way down over here to the legs. You can see the detailing, the pattern. He's got the nice pouches detailed on his legs there. And, of course, we can lift the legs up, because the whole point of this guy is that he can sit in your AT-ST walker. You can see the foot pegs there underneath. We'll have a look at him there from the front. Okay, we can lift him up to see his foot pegs there underneath, as we always do. And so that's our AT-ST Driver there from the front. We turn him over here to the side. There's our AT-ST pilot / driver from the side. And then, of course, we turn around to the back, and we can see detail, extra detail here on the back as well. We'll notice that he's got nice wrinkles, detailing coming across his outfit. And then on the back of his leg there, one leg says Taiwan, the other one says Lucasfilm Limited in 1984 on the back of that leg there. So again, one of the final releases. I don't have his weapon in hand here. I've misplaced that, but that is the figure that we got towards the end of the Return of the Jedi line, and a nice welcome addition to your collection in your Imperial troop army. Okay, so now Star Wars goes into hiatus. Return of the Jedi finishes, and there's no more big movies, and George Lucas decides he's going to take a break and says that's it. And, of course, no movies means no toys, so nothing gets produced after 1985, and Star Wars goes into its dark times, goes into hiatus, and makes its triumphant return, of course, in the 90s with the Timothy Zahn novels, and, of course, with the Dark Empire comic books from Dark Horse. All the nostalgia with people that was growing up that has extra spending money now gets them back into Star Wars, and we realize, yeah, there is still a market for Star Wars. And George Lucas, of course, announces they're going to continue and make new movies as well, episodes 1, 2, and 3, and we get back in the game. So Kenner / Hasbro gets back in the game, and they release the Power of the Force 2 line, and a couple years in, we finally get an update to our AT-ST drivers. So in 1997, on the green card back, we get our AT-ST driver. Now, he was released on the green card back, and then shortly afterwards on the freeze frame. I do have a carded version of that character to show you over here. So here's the AT-ST driver on the card back here from the freeze frame. I will notice that he is obviously a little bulkier than the previous version, but again, it's an updated version of a Star Wars figure, and who would have thought, especially me when I was growing up, that I get a chance to collect Star Wars figures again, and this was my chance now for all the stuff that I missed out on. Like a lot of people when they were growing up, they had extra spending money, and we were jumping at any opportunity to grab a hold of our childhood again. So there he is. This is a Canadian release, of course. This one here, it's got the 3 different languages here, English, French, and Spanish on the front there. There's the freeze frame there on the side. So there was a freeze frame gimmick where you could mail away to get a viewfinder to look at your slides through, and every single one had a slide based on how they appeared in the movies. So that's the front of the card back. You notice that there is Series 3 here. It says on the bottom, picture of Darth Vader, and of course he comes with a couple different weapons there. One that's movie related, one that we've never seen before. It's more of a expanded universe thing. So we'll turn that card back over to the back. And then of course in the back we see the Battle of Endor there, and it says AT-ST driver. And you actually can't see an AT-ST driver in this picture. If they just lifted that AT-ST up, you'd probably see somebody standing up the top there. But in the photo here, we can't see him. We do see our rebels there, though, battling the Imperials against all odds over here with the Ewoks' help. So on the bottom over here, we can see a couple more things there. Vehicles or creatures, that were released. And then some other characters that were released there at the time. So that is the freeze frame release of the AT-ST driver. Let's have a look at him loose. So let's put that back over here. And then here is the character from the Power of the Force 2 line. Now, he has what a lot of the characters did at the time. By the time this release came out, he wasn't as bulky, but he's still pretty bulky compared to, what the figure's depiction should be. A lot of the stuff at the time, this is the way toys were geared towards kids in the 90s. Everybody liked bulky, muscular characters, superheroes, wrestlers, and of course, that translated into Star Wars figures because they were trying to get into a new market. So we bring that up close. We can see the different paint detail on the helmet there. They've painted little buttons and tabs there on the sides, a different color in silver. There's his front helmet on there with the goggles and the chin strap. We turn that around over to the side. We can see the nice detailing. We can see that it's come a long way, of course, from the sculpting that we've had in the 80s over into the 90s here with the paint detail. Now, articulation on this guy here, you can turn his head side to side. You have that option. We can see the detailing on his outfit here. The original one was a little more detailed, and I like the gray on the original one a little better. This one's a little faded. It's a little more flat gray. And not as much detail in the sculpting. It's basically a plain figure, is more of an army builder. But you can see he does have the Imperial insignias, of course, on his 2 sides there on the shoulders coming down. He does have articulation here at the waist, so you can turn him side to side. So that's new, something that we didn't have before on the original ones. Okay, the stance is a little interesting. It's kind of an action stance, kind of a straight stance, but that's what we get with this guy here. And of course, articulation at the arms. He can move his arms up. He is holding his blaster in hand there. And then as we work our way down over here, we can see that he does have articulation there at the legs, so he can sit freely in the AT-ST Walker, which was re-released, of course, with the Power of the Force 2 line. So you could purchase that and then put these guys in there. So that's our AT-ST driver from the front. And then we lift them up under here. We can see his foot pegs there underneath. And on one leg it says 1997 Lucasfilm Limited. The other one says Kenner China. So that's what we get with this guy here. And then we turn him to the side. And we can see what he looks like from the side there. And then, of course, from the back, not much extra here other than the nice detailing on the helmet there. And we can see the nice paint job and wrinkles coming down the character over here. But again, in that beefier, muscular pose. And, of course, that makes him stand out as a Power of the Force 2 figure from the 1990s. So the next version we get of the AT-ST driver would be 6 years later in 2003. Interesting times. So Star Wars Saga, we get the 2 prequel movies come out and they merge the lines. So they merge the lines to include the original trilogy with the prequel trilogies. And some figures, a lot of them, of course, had action-oriented poses. and they'd make a new AT-ST driver as part of the Star Wars Saga line in an Imperial Forces 4-pack. Now that figure itself is basically a kit bash figure. It takes an Imperial officer body, and then it takes the Rebel fleet trooper head, and it kind of kit bashes it together. So it wasn't really a brand new figure, but again, it was a new version of an AT-ST driver. I don't have that one. I'm going to try to get a picture up as clear as possible to show you what he looks like. But you know, that's worth noting that that figure was released coincidentally in the same year as part of the Star Wars Saga line. We would get a new AT-ST driver, but this time it wouldn't technically be an AT-ST driver if you looked at him closely, because it would be a Rebel in disguise as an Imperial AT-ST driver, and that's the Han Solo figure that we see over here. So this would be the new version of the AT-ST driver that we'd get. And of course, if you notice, the figures again are a lot more realistic than what we were getting initially in the Power of the Force 2 line. This is Han Solo as he appeared for momentarily when they were trying to get the Endor bunker open, and he got into the AT-ST and then got onto the screen there and asked them to open the door, saying the rebels were done. So we noticed that a lot of the figures suffered this at the time. They had a more realistic sculpt, but they're pre-posed. They're kind of stuck in a particular position, and you can't really do much with them. And I just wanted to bring up the Han here just to show you. He does have a removable helmet, so that does come off. We can pull that helmet off of him there. Just give me one sec. So we can see that is Harrison Ford / Han Solo underneath. And I did want to mention him because, of course, he does fall into that AT-ST driver outfit, right? So you could use him as an AT-ST driver, especially because he's a little more realistic than what you had. And at the time we were jumping at that, you notice the nice details. He does have the Imperial insignias. They're a little faded there on the sides, but only on the one shoulder. He does have, you know, the detailed communicator there on his forearm. So you can see that there. And of course, in his hand here, it's not painted, but he does have a communicator that he's talking to the Imperials to open that bunker and let them in. So his hand is posed to, you know, bring that up to his face there and talk to them. There is a swivel here at the arm, so you can straighten that arm out and put the arm down if you like. So you have that option. And of course, you have movement here where you can articulate the wrist there as well to straighten that out for the figure. On this side over here, it's pre-posed. He does have the articulation there at the elbow, so you can swivel that arm out and in, but you can't put it flat down. So he's kind of stuck in that pose, but you can hold the blaster, you can have him standing. But you can see how much they've gone with the outfits on these guys. They come a lot further. It's a proper gray with a nice black belt and nice wrinkles on the outfit there. Much more realistic design. Again, coming a long way just in 6 years from what they were initially doing on these characters. And you got Harrison Ford with a really, you know, serious face expression there. Articulation-wise, he can turn his head side to side. Okay, and then I did take off that helmet just to show you what that looks like as well. So there's the obviously separate antenna sticking up there on the side. Let's just bring that a little bit closer just so you can see it. And you can see it's sculpted nice. It's not painted here on the sides. They haven't done that silver paint job like they did on the Power of the Force 2 one. But the chin strap is separate, and that having a removable helmet is, of course, night and day different from what we were accustomed to until this point. So we can see that all the way around. We can see what it looks like underneath inside there as well. So that is the helmet. And then as we work our way down over here at the waist, we'll notice we can turn him side to side, the Han Solo figure. And then, of course, down here at the legs, we can lift the legs all the way up to have him sitting in your AT-ST. And that's what he looks like standing from the front with his Imperial outfit. And then if we lift him up underneath here, we can see his foot pegs. And I'm going to try to read what it's on there, what it says on there. And I think it says 2002, if I'm not mistaken. And then Kenner China on the other foot. So that's what he looks like. And then that's what he looks like from the side. So you can see a lot more realistic. He doesn't have an over muscular body. And then of course that's what he looks like from the back as well. And that's the Han Solo that came as part of the Star Wars Saga line. He was an individual release, and of course we would see this body design released many times in the future. Okay, so next up would be 2007. It's now the 30th anniversary of the original Star Wars movie, and they make an anniversary collection line, And in this anniversary collection line, they had battle packs. And in one of those battle packs, we got a new ATST driver. So that's this guy over here. Now, right away, we're going to notice that he's reusing that Han Solo body that we had. Interesting mind. I'm not sure if it's just the test of time or whatnot, but he's definitely greenish. It doesn't really come out as gray. I mean, you put them side to side over here, and you're like, yeah, that looks green. That does not look gray. So I don't know if it's just fading paint job over time or just a darker paint job, but mine is definitely got a green hue to it on the outfit. But you can see it's that Han Solo body reused there. Exactly the same articulation on this guy all the way around. He does have the helmet, but one thing that's different here, and of course, if you're a Star Wars collector, you'd like to have all these different options if you could. If you're army building, he does have a different head sculpt. So we popped that off. We noticed that this Imperial officer has a different head from the previous one, the Han Solo one, of course. So they may give it more of a generic look on this guy here. But same thing on the outfit, the details painted. He doesn't have the insignia on the shoulder, so these battle packs sometimes compromised on what came with them, paint-wise or accessory-wise on these characters. But again, welcome addition and worthy to mention. That figure was reused many times, and it used to frustrate me because I couldn't straighten the arms and just had them in these fixed, chicken wing poses. But that is the figure, and of course that would give you some options for your Imperial army, because all we had was the Power of the Force 2 one, the original one, and the Han Solo one at the time. Next up would be 2009 as part of the Legacy Collection Red. This time coming with an ATST, so they made a brand new ATST, the one that we see over here on the side, right there. And he came with an ATST driver, and of course I was really excited to get a new ATST driver, hoping that he was different, and we actually got the same ATST driver with a new head. So that's this guy over here. It was nice to get a figure with your vehicle at the time. Still, the gray it's a little bit dark on this character here, but it's a nice welcome addition. I like the head sculpt a lot better on this figure. I do like, of course, the color of the gray better than the one that we previously got. And this is one that was to put into your ATST. Now, he does have the Imperial insignia there on the side, but only on the one shoulder, not on the other shoulder. And that's probably more accurate. That's why they're doing it this way than the original one. But I don't know, I'm kind of stuck on what this guy looks like and wish they just make one that looks exactly like him, but that's just me. So as far as the figure itself, articulation is exactly the same. I know I have this arm sitting straight down. You might think, oh, that means that it's different. No, it's still exactly the same. It still swivels back and forth there. I do have his blaster in hand. I've never removed it. It's got the little elastic on there, but of course the blaster there is more realistic because a lot of the stuff was a little more realistic at the time. So the big worthy difference over here on this character, of course, is the head sculpt. So we're going to take off his helmet there, and we're going to have a close-up look at his head sculpt there. Now, this guy is supposed to depict the director of Return of the Jedi, I believe it is. But you can see we do have a new head sculpt there. Nice paint detail on the character. The articulation is good on these guys. It's nice to have all these different depictions and characters and army builders, and you can have these figures with the helmet on, with the helmet off, and it makes your Imperial army and your dioramas a lot more realistic and, a pleasure to display when you have different versions of the characters. It'd just be nice if they didn't have that same body pose where they're fixed. But I mean, you can put his arms around the front. You can technically put his arms around the back, like he's standing there and he's thinking, or he's waiting to get orders from Darth Vader. So you can do that because that was the original Imperial officer pose for this guy, the arms that they're using. So you can do different stuff with these guys, but there's not much to show you here as far as articulation, other than the fact that it is a new head sculpt and a new release of the ATST driver. Excuse me, and that this is the one that came out in 2009 with the ATST. Okay, so now we jump 1 year. We never get a proper release of an ATST driver, and our prayers get answered in 2010. As part of the Shadows of the Dark Side line, they made these battle packs that were Target exclusives. I'm up here in Canada, so it was a Zellers exclusive. Zellers, there used to be a store here called Zellers Department Store, and they used to carry exclusive Star Wars stuff that was from Target, and walked in there one day and saw these guys. And it's amazing how much times have changed, but these sets weren't even very expensive at the time. It was like they ended up clearancing them. They were maybe $40, $50 at the time. And you had 3 figures, and you had an ATST, and you had, accessories to go along with them. I, for money constraints, didn't pick up that set at the time. I did pick up the other set, the Rebel one that had the radar dishes to create that Battle of Hoth scene, and it had some Rebel troopers and Hoth Rebel troopers in there. But I didn't pick up the Imperial one, and of course, it did come with a brand new ATST driver, and that was the only thing that was luring me to get it. Never got it, and I regretted it for years because I really wanted to get that set. We'll throw a picture up, but that was the first new release or proper modern release of an ATST driver. And we're going to look at them. We have the figure here, but I didn't have that original release that came out in 2010. So in 2012, we get our prayers answered as part of the vintage collection. And again, this time as an exclusive. This time it was a Kmart exclusive. We get the Endor ATST crew. And then to my horror, this doesn't get released in Canada. It's an American release, and I never got one right away. I got one years later, but I did end up getting the set. And if you have an opportunity to grab this set and it's not expensive, I recommend you do get it, because you not only get 2 ATST drivers, but you get 2 separate head sculpts that you can only get in this set. So let's have a look at these figures over here. I'll bring this one forward first. So this is our first ATST driver that we have that's modernized, super articulated. We can see it does have a brand new head sculpt. Let's have a look at him with this helmet on. We can see how far we've come over here on these characters now. They've made that visor from the original issues of black. They made it into like a darker green hue on there to give it more of a reflective look on the character. I would have liked some paint detail on this guy over here on the helmet, but there's nothing on this side. They omitted painting that part there, but they did paint a little silver ring or tab here on the other side, right there at the top. And we can see the nice detail on the helmet working our way around, but it's nice to have one that's to scale, and it really works well with the character. Now, when we take that helmet off, we're going to have a closer look at it, just so you can see it close up. And we can see the detail, the chin strap, the green visor that they've put on that guy. You can see the detail all the way around on this thing here as I turn it around to the back. That's the helmet that we got, and then of course that's what it looks like from underneath. Inside there, you can't really see anything in there, but it's just designed to sit, of course, on his head. Now the figure himself, he's a neat figure. He's got a nice, neat head sculpt there that you can see, wavy hair. And again, this is the only way you're going to get this head sculpt if you bought this 2-pack, because the one that was released afterwards doesn't have both figures depicted. So that's this guy here. You can see he's got a nice serious look. The head is on a ball joint, so you can turn it around. I love the detail and sculpting on these vintage collection figures. I know they're very popular now, but they did a really great job on them. They took the time to make these figures pleasable, a pleasure to have in your collection, and of course worth getting. Of course, I love the sculpting on here. It doesn't have full articulation that we expect nowadays, but it does have what we need him to do, which is to sit in an ATST and then to put him into some sort of action poses as well. So you can see the nice detail on his outfit, the wrinkles on his pockets there. He does have the Imperial insignia there on the one shoulder. He does have this neat strap here that's coming over. That's a separate piece that gives it a nice realistic look, and it gives it a nice aesthetic to the figure. So he's not looking just plain on the character. That runs around all the way on the back. You can see it's almost like it's like a harness that goes across to help him. You almost wish that he had a parachute on so he can jump out of these chicken walkers, but he doesn't. So articulation wise here at the arms, his shoulder is on a ball joint there, so you can have full movement on this character finally all the way up, and no swivels at the elbows. My God, every time I look at the ATST driver, I'm like, please tell me it doesn't have a swivel at the elbow. Full articulation there at the elbow. You can move them around. And then, of course, at the wrist, at the glove here, you can turn that any way you like as well. So that's articulation there at the arm. We work our way down over here at the chest. We can see there is a ab crunch there. You can bring him forward a little bit. His strapping here is harness that goes over the top. It does kind of restrict how much you can do with it, but you can turn him fully side to side. And you kind of angle him as well. You can do what you want with these guys to put them in an action pose. We work our way down to the legs here. Of course, the legs are just standard articulation. Doesn't have a ball joint here at the hip, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. Some characters I think need it, some don't. I find that they fall over easily if you don't have them in an action pose. So you can lift that all the way up. You can bend him at the knee. He has articulation there at the knee, so you can have him sitting properly, whether in your ATSD or in some Imperial facility. You have that option. And then of course down here at the ankle, you have ankle articulation as well. You don't have rocker ankles. Of course, that wasn't a thing at the time, but you have that articulation there at the bottom as well. So that is our ATST driver as he looks like from the front there. Let's lift him up underneath. We can see what it says underneath there. It says 2010 Lucasfilm Limited on one foot, and then Hasbro China on the other one. He's got little foot pegs there. So there he is from the front. This hand over here is holding one of his blasters. I'll just pull that out of his hand just to show you. So it's a shiny version of his Imperial blaster there, the realistic one that they've been using. And that's become a common accessory, of course, with these characters. As far as the other arm here, you can see they've painted the nice detail here. Communicator or whatever that is on the side there on his arm, that's painted nicely there. And then as far as the figure from the side, that's what he looks like. And then we turn him around to the back and we can see the detail on this guy on the back as well. So that is our ATST Imperial driver that we've got from the 2-pack. That's the first one. We're going to look at the second one as well. Okay, so here's the second figure from the ATST crew, Andor crew, that came from the Kmart exclusive. We just looked at the first one. Let's pull the helmet off of this guy and see what he looks like. So that just comes up nicely like that there, and you can see the nice detail on the head sculpt there. We can see that it is a different head sculpt than the one that we have, that we looked at a moment ago. I'm going to bring them side by side, but you can see that the figure is exactly the same character. Designed to be an army builder. You can have them, of course, with the helmets off, and you can have them with the helmets on, and it gives you extra play value or options for your Imperial crew. So I have him pre-posed there holding the blaster. Let's bring the other guy over side by side so we can look at him. And here we go. We can see the head sculpts on these guys. So you can tell me whether it's worth something for you to pick up this set. If it is, you get 2 different head sculpts on these guys. And we'll see that in future releases we don't get this guy anymore. So almost has a Quentin Tarantino look to him. So that's an interesting observation, the smirk that he's got on his face there. And then, of course, that's what they look like side by side in your display. So that's the Andor ATST crew that came out from the Vintage Collection in 2012. Okay, so next up is 2021. So in 2021, of course, the Vintage Collection comes back, and we're clamoring to try and finish the original 96 figures to get them on a vintage card. And we get our prayers answered in a Walmart exclusive 50th Lucasfilm Limited anniversary card back, but we would get that Imperial ATST driver released one more time, the same one that we've looked at, but here he is on card, and we can see I just got really nostalgic looking at that when it came out in the store, and I was ecstatic to grab him. And of course, you can pick this guy up, you can army build him, you can probably still find him in the stores, but there he is on card back. And just like we talked about, you don't really have any sort of movie image that they can use for these characters here other than, you know, a still prop or Han Solo in the cockpit or something further away. So they just put an ATST there in the background like the original card, because you'll put 2 and 2 together. You'll say ATST driver and ATST / chicken walker. Buy the chicken walker, put your driver inside of it. He's supposed to drive it. So one goes hand in hand with the other. So there he is nicely on the Vintage Collection card back. There's a 50th anniversary logo here in the top for Lucasfilm. Nice Return of the Jedi logo there. Then, of course, the name pill with the ATST driver. And, of course, the ATST driver inside the packaging. I love the blue background. behind him there makes the figure stand out. And of course the Kenner logo here at the bottom, and we turn that guy around and we can see that he is Vintage Collection number 192. And then there's a few other figures that were released as Walmart exclusives there on the back that you could pick up as well at the time, that came out at the same time as the ATST driver. So that's him on card back there. Let's just put that back. We'll just have a quick look at the character one more time here. So this is the newest version that we've received of the ATST driver. Paint job is identical to the previous one. Nothing's really changed on here. They have altered the head sculpt a little bit, so he does have a slightly different head sculpt, but there's not like you get a different one in each package. You're only getting this head sculpt on the character. I just want to show you a nice close-up of that. His head, of course, is on a ball joint. And of course, with the scan technology they have, it's a lot more realistic, paint job wise too, on the head sculpt there. But he just has a flat dark brown hair color. So you can have him with his helmet on or his helmet off. There isn't really any extra detail on there. I guess the proper comparison would be with this guy here. Let's just bring him over momentarily from the 2-pack release, and we can see the head sculpts on the two of them there. It's the same, basically the same head sculpt, but with a different scan or paint on the front of it. But you can see just enough to differentiate them and to know that one is the Kmart 2-pack from years before and one is the new one. They've come a long way, of course, with the scan technology, particularly on the eyes. They used to be really, really hit and miss on these characters with the eyes when you were looking at them at the store, and some of them would be cross-eyed or have the pupil too dark, and that used to annoy the crap out of me. I'd always try to pick out the ones that had the really good face sculpt, or it was like ruined for me on these characters. So they've nailed that, and every single figure that comes out nowadays has that scan technology, and the face paint jobs are perfect on every single figure. So it's nice to have that. There he is. That's the most recent release. That's our Vintage Collection release of the ATST driver. Let's put his helmet on just so we can take a look at him one more time. And that's what he looks like with the helmet on, and that's what we got. That's the most modern look. It's probably the most updated look that we're going to get for this guy here. So if you hadn't had a chance to pick him up and you want the character, now's the time to get him. And that does it for our review. So again, if you've managed to stick around this far, thank you. I appreciate you guys sharing the passion with me. And if you haven't had a chance yet, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next video. Take care.